We spent the weekend in Montgomery, Alabama, where my son recently moved for a job. The state capital of Alabama and the birthplace of both the Confederacy and the Civil Rights Movement. Montgomery is dripping with history. With the rapidly revitalizing downtown, that's my son's apartment on Dexter Avenue. We headed downtown for a cocktail when we arrived Friday evening at the Lower Lounge, just outside the alley on Tallapoosa Street. A cool spot in the basement of a downtown building. That's my wife Linda and my son Miles. His apartment is on Dexter Avenue, with the state capitol located on one end and the Court Square fountain at the other. Rosa Parks statue overlooks the site of our famous bus ride. We started the next morning with coffee from the excellent Prevail Union in his building, voted the best coffee in Alabama. And took a tour through history on Dexter Avenue. Dr. Martin Luther King was the pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, built in 1885 overlooking the state capitol from 1954 to 60. And the Montgomery bus boycotts were organized here. Dexter Avenue, formerly Market Street, was named for one of the founders of Montgomery. Along this street moved the inaugural parade of the first president of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis. The famous song Dixie was played as a band arrangement for the first time on this occasion. On one side of the Capitol is the display of the 50 state flags. At the base of each flag is a native rock from each of the states, including lava from Hawaii. From the steps of the Capitol, looking back down Dexter Avenue to Court Square, that's the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church on the left, and our son's apartment on the right. The monument to Confederate soldiers and sailors, built in 1898, adorns one side of the Capitol. This historical marker marks the spot where the Selma to Montgomery Civil Rights March ended in 1965, with 25,000 marchers, culminating a series of demonstrations that began in Selma on March 7, Bloody Sunday, when some 600 peaceful protesters were savagely beaten by lawmen as they crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The march was focused on voting rights for African Americans, eventually culminating in the signing of the Civil Rights Act by Lyndon B. Johnson later that year. To mark the bicentennial of Alabama in 2019, a series of markers were put in place to portray key moments in Alabama history. At the other end of Dexter marks the spot where Rosa Parks began her infamous bus ride, refusing to give her seat up to a white person, resulting in her arrest and conviction, leading to the Montgomery bus boycott, which lasted over a year and only ended when the U.S. Supreme Court ordered integration of public transportation. My son's apartment is in the former Crest department store. They kept the shell of the building and built a modern building inside. A pocket park next to the Crest building serves as a public gathering place. That's his apartment on the top level. Thank the Alabama Shakespeare Festival for these quotes from the Bard. We took a walk down to the riverfront where the Union Station train depot dominates the waterfront. Going under the train tracks, you find a revitalized waterfront with a classic paddle wheel riverboat and a riverfront open-air amphitheater at the top of the tower, which serves as another way to cross the train tracks. Okay, we're here on the river in Montgomery at downtown. There's the train depot, and we're on the bridge above the train tracks, way up high. Pretty cool visit to downtown Montgomery. Back at Court Square, on the right, you see the Winter Building, where the telegram was sent authorizing an attack on Fort Sumter, the beginning of the Civil War. Another intersection of history on Dexter Avenue. An encouragement to vote inside the Crest Building. This one's for you, Eric Sharp. A few shots from my son's apartment. And Rosa waiting for the bus. We had a southern meal at Cahaba House, just off Court Square. Next, we visited the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, a powerful hilltop memorial to the lives lost to racial lynchings. The first thing you see is a striking set of statues showing a slave family torn apart. As happened to over half of slave families, the markers evoke hanging bodies, with each one representing a different county with its known victims across the southern states. While much research has been done to identify the victims, many names will never be known. A dark chapter in our nation's history. On the outside, additional markers are meant to invoke caskets. If you go to Montgomery and you're open to the experience, I recommend a visit. It's very powerful and visceral. We stopped by the Irish Bread Pub, a good spot on Dexter to wind down with a cocktail. Later that evening, we walked down nearby Commerce Street towards the river to grab dinner at the house. Our experience was a little mixed, but we'll crack that up to the new waiter and give him a break. The area is bustling on the fine spring evening, and the bars and restaurants were hopping, many of them in historic buildings. We started the next morning with coffee on the balcony. We returned to Cahaba House for a southern breakfast, biscuits and gravy, an extra southern version, the spotted pig, with local Kenneca sausage and pimento cheese. We walked back down to the riverfront, along storied Commerce Street, where a series of historical buildings house businesses, restaurants, and hotels. The statue honors country legend Hank Williams, a native son. His museum is just across Commerce Street, overlooking the riverfront and the Union Station train depot. This statue honors the 40,000 Alabamans who died in World War I. The alley is a redeveloped area housing many bars and restaurants. Just down the street is Riverwalk Stadium, home of minor league baseball's Montgomery Biscuits. The location was also the site of a brutal Confederate military prison. By 1860, Montgomery became a key hub in the domestic slave trade, one of the larger slave trading markets. With over 40,000 slaves in Montgomery, slave traders' offices line Commerce and Market Street, along with numerous slave warehouses. One of these warehouses is now home to the Legacy Museum, a powerful exhibit that tells the story of African Americans in the U.S., from the days of slavery to the Jim Crow era lynching and the Civil Rights Movement to the mass incarceration of today. I also highly recommend you take time to visit and learn from this powerful telling of history that provides real perspective. Across the street is the impressive Greek Revival Murphy House, built in 1851 by cotton broker John Murphy. It is being redeveloped into Marriott Autograph Collection Hotel. Back at the Crest Building, another visceral reminder of our sordid past. At the start of Crest on Dexter's renovation, construction crews uncovered 2 oversized slabs of marble, engraved with the words white and colored. These slabs backed Crest's segregated water fountains. The carved bedrock reflects the depth to which racial segregation of Jim Crow laws permeated society. This past remains a painful truth for all who lived it. Rather than be ignored or denied, it must be acknowledged and its impact understood in order to reconcile our collective history. That is why the stone remains. We took a mid-afternoon break at the Mellow Mushroom to enjoy another fine spring day. We enjoyed our early dinner at Zaza Serious Italian Food at the Alley, a good spot. Flew my drone from my son's balcony, catching a fine view of the Capitol. I was surprised there was not a no-fly zone. Looking down Church Street, you can see the Murphy House, the Alabama River behind. There's the Capitol Building, behind one of several modern skyscrapers housing banks. sun was setting, and the lights of the city were coming on. The bicentennial markers lit up in a semicircle across from the Capitol. That's Riverwalk Stadium on the right, home of Montgomery Biscuits baseball, and Riverfront Amphitheater. Headed back for a landing at Cress. We had a great weekend in Montgomery, learning about its rich history and enjoying its restaurants and bars. Montgomery has a lot to offer and is definitely worth a visit, especially if you're into history. Arriving back in Atlanta after a great weekend. We'll see you again, Montgomery. Click that Bob Shots button on the left to subscribe now and join us for more of our travels around the world.